So I was on a plane yesterday and I was sitting across the aisle from Chris Tunney, who I am married to, and she was laughing really loud and disturbing the other passengers.
Oh
So
no.
finally I had to hit her and I said, "What are you doing?" Do you know what? She was listening to our podcast.
No way.
Swear to God.
She was. That's
So I said, "Oh, never mind. Keep laughing."
Was it the part when you admitted that you remade the bed after she made it?
I think that was one of them. She's like, "I can't believe you told people that because it makes you look like a psychopath." I'm like, "I know."
The Hollow Buddy. And we all feel hollow.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the Hollow Bunny Leadership Podcast. I'm Kristen Zeman, and I am here with my what word to describe you today? You're traveling and you're kind of displaced now. So like maybe my nomadic co-host. Does that work for you?
it's a little racy, but
Yeah, it
I
is.
know
But
what
like,
it implies.
yeah.
But I'm good
Yeah,
with it. Let's roll.
nomadic. Yeah, you're in a random hotel right now, and so you're nomadic, but you're also still cheerful and charming. So, Sylvia Moyer, my co-host. So hey, Hollow Bunny listeners, as you guys know, we are both former police chiefs, but this podcast is not just for cops; it's for
No.
anyone interested in talking about life and leadership, particularly the lessons that we've learned about both. And those lessons fill up the metaphorical hollow bunny. So let me tell you who's filling our bunny today, okay?
Tell millions of listeners all
Okay,
over the
today,
globe.
our millions of listeners, buckle up. We have Becky Stickley on today from Stickley Strategies. And I'm going to let Becky get into a little more of the background, but we met when she was working for the International Association of Chiefs of Police. And so tell us a little bit about your role there and how you fell into that law enforcement organization and what you did there.
Sure. So I kind of came a roundabout way, but was always on that track, I think. So I come from a police family. My dad is a police officer. And I did my internship in college at the Prince William County, Virginia Police Department. I graduated from college, was a governor's fellow in the public safety secretary's office. So I was all there. And then, as many of us do, I had to go play in the career jungle gym for a little while. So I was a children's librarian. You know, I can read really well upside down.
You read upside down. You whisper.
I can whisper. I can sing children's songs like none other. So I did that. I worked in intellectual property for a little bit. And then someone sent me, it might have been my dad even, sent me a job position at IACP working on their Center for Social Media. It was a brand new program. And I was like, hey, that sounds cool. I could do that. And so I spent over 10 years at IACP working in various capacities, kind of on the programmatic side. I worked on more the association management side, bounced back and forth, did communications for a while, and then ended my time there with you wonderful women in member engagement, and doing some different stuff there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a great time.
Wow.
No kidding. I love that you mentioned the jungle gym of careers because isn't that so true? You know, we always think about our careers as being the ladder that we climb. And so often it's the jungle gym and a teeter-totter. And then, you fall down, get your knee, all messed up. And, then you have to get back up and, here you go again, climbing around. So I appreciate that metaphor.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And you get things you like, things you don't like, different skills and different strengths, and it's all about the jungle gym.
Yeah, and you said you got this really cool opportunity. What an interesting thing that you saw it as a really cool opportunity, and this is a big machine. For those people that don't understand the enormity of IACP, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, give them some context and maybe help us understand that big machine and why it's so important.
It is. It's a huge machine with not a huge staff. And that's where I think, it even gets its power. There's at one point there's over 30,000 members. And so it's a machine that takes a lot of different people, different roles, different skill sets to make a lot of change and a lot of impact, not only in policing, but as you all know, in communities throughout the world. For me, and I still to this day, when I talk to somebody who is like new in their career and is looking for like, I don't even know what I want to do, I tell them go to an association. Because again, you talk about I mentioned the career jungle gym. I feel like even my time at IACP was a career jungle gym, because I really did. I worked on social media. I traveled from Maine to Alaska teaching police officers how to use social media tools back when they were, relatively new. I worked on officer safety and wellness. I helped manage conferences and did event planning. And, like there was just marketing, magazines, editing, like the skill set I was able to grow there, because again, you're right. Like it is just a huge operation that does so much and churns out so much value in so many different ways and on so many different topics. It's hard to, it's funny because I was in it, right? And so I'll tell someone, I'll meet a police officer or police chief and say, oh yeah, I worked at ICP. They're like, what? Yeah, I think you take for granted, that it was just where I worked, sat in, an office and I worked there. But they churn out so much value.
Right. And globally,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, like the community policing committee, one of the committees that I'm familiar with, there were members from all over the world. And so the influence of IACP is to get folks to churn on these ideas, to really look at strategy and policy and programs and systems. So it's really, really cool. How did you influence the overall mission of the association? Because we're really interested in talking about how people, individuals, irrespective of their rank, their title, where they sit in an organization, they can have massive influence, and their leadership is really important and real. So can you kind of speak to that? Give us some kind of sense of that?
Sure. And I think, I can speak for myself and others. I think there's a lot of different ways. You mentioned, at any level. So one of the things I mentioned, I work on the programmatic side for a while. So, Department of Justice, like all these different big grantors of money put out these solicitations sometimes yearly. And there's people, there's like real humans behind the proposals that go into them. And so the great thing about IACP is they hold both kind of the thought leader role and the convener role. So there's great people within the association that do great work. They also bring together like some of the best minds in policing. And so some of it was, coming up with these really unique ideas to put forth for grant programs. And sometimes it was, who can we get in the room to create some really great ideas for some great programs? And so, I was able to work on everything from the proposal level on. When you're out in the field, you come back with all kinds of stuff. So I mentioned, my first role was traveling around the world, sitting next to police chiefs and setting up Facebook accounts and Twitter accounts and showing them how to use YouTube. But nothing happens in a silo. So while I was there, I'm like hearing things, I'm hearing, talking to them over dinner about challenges. And you better believe like all of that was getting written down and then being brought back. I didn't always know what it meant. I didn't always know where it could lead. But I think, again, a part of our role as leaders is communicating, knowing that like, okay, something's here. There's that spark. There's something that we could do here. Let's pull together the right people. How can we solve this? Like, what's keeping people up at night? What can we do to put in their hands? And so that happened on that programmatic side. And then again, when I was on member engagement, hearing some of the same things in committees and sections.
Yeah, I don't think that even the people who are members of the IACP on the law enforcement side really even understand the complex animal that the IACP is. And as Vince Tolucci often says, with many, many moving parts, but what it is the gold standard in law enforcement. It is how we set policy across the nation and beyond, and how we confer with other countries to learn best practices and then apply those to the boots on the street, in, the, 18,000 police departments across the US. And so, it is a mighty mission. So, the fact that you were a part of that is absolutely remarkable. So then tell us the transition. And what I'm
She's
particularly
asking, why did you break up with them? That's kind of why. So if you loved it so much and it's a big machine influencing, why'd you break up? Now go ahead and
it
finish your
wasn't
question, Christy.
it wasn't
That's
them. It was me. It was me. Um, break up with them. I termed out. I was the vice president at large, and then my term ran out, and then I retired from law enforcement. So basically,
okay.
I got kicked out. I mean,
Okay, so
really.
Becky, why'd you break up with them? So first of all,
So
couldn't
I
help.
would like to think that we're still friends.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's
I
what
don't know how that
everyone
goes.
says.
No.
Yeah.
But so I actually got, while I was at IACP, I got my coaching certification. I went through a program and started using it. They were really supportive of it. I did some trainings internally for staff and different things, and then also started to get some clients that were non-IACP people. And so my days started to look like working at IACP all day and then coaching all evening. And I have a family whom I love very, very much. And I started talking to my husband, and he was like, what would it look like to have your own business? And it was really one of those things of like, I don't know, because you're right. I did love IACP. I still do, obviously. I hope you can hear that in my voice. And so it was more one of those like, let's try this. Like, I think I could do something. I think I could impact people in a really different way. And so it was not easy, but I did give my notice, and I gave a lot of notice and let them know I was leaving. And there were tears on a lot of parts. And I'm really glad that I did it, because I think I am learning more about myself, and, talking about continuing the career jungle gym analogy, really flexing some new muscles that I don't know that I could have flexed there. So yeah, it was really a risk, and I went for it.
Yeah, so okay, we all broke up with them then. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
But we're all still friends. But isn't that what we want, as, especially as an employer, when you have someone, what is it like, skill, build the skill in people and the talent, and basically you can kind of hope that they move out to move up, right? I mean, that's what we want for our people. So I think that's remarkable that over those 10 years you built those skills and built the confidence to go out on your own. How long did it take for you, though? Was that like a quick decision or something that you mulled over for a long time? Did you, and this is what I'm particularly interested about, because there's a lot of people that, like, I want to start something new. I want to take a jump. I want to do something, but I don't know where to begin. Did you start the planning phase first and then jump, or were you like, screw it, I'm just going to jump and I will figure out how to build the net later? How did that look for you?
Yeah, so it was a little bit of both. So I would say I probably molded over for about a year. And even then, it was more like, how could I do both? Like, how could I build this business while doing these things? It wasn't super clear to me that it was just going to be all that. Somewhere along the line, it was, like I said, I realized I was going to need to make a choice. So I did start doing a lot of planning. I set some benchmarks, like how many clients do I need before I'm kind of comfortable making that move. So really because you're never ready. Like you're never going to, as someone who I think everyone feels that way. I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs, and I think you have to set the benchmarks that you're comfortable with. And so I did that, and I met them. And even then there was probably 2 or 3 more months where I was like, am I sure that I'm ready? And then turning in that letter was one of the hardest things I ever did. But I did it in a way that I hoped. And I will say, even then I was like, okay, don't burn the bridge, because you might need to go back. So I would say it was about a year that it really, really mulled over. It was not just a like, let's do this.
So you left for an opportunity. You didn't leave because of a deficiency in the organization, right?
No.
And that's a really cool thing. And then branching out on your own, you said you really like your family. Good thing, because they're your family. And so there's a leap, right? So you went out for a really interesting kind of exploration. So, how meticulous were you with the planning about that? Or did you come up with a whole business plan? You said you had a certain number of clients you really wanted, or did you just go with that intuitive kind of space that a lot of people go to? Because those are different
Yes,
endeavors, right? And you sound like you weren't gripped by fear and this aversion of doing something new. You were gripped by courage, doing something
I
different,
would like to think that, but there
not
were
saying it.
moments that I was not sure. um, I would say so. I did have a business plan. It was not as robust as many business plans would be. I think I could have done a bit better job. That being said, I'm glad I didn't waste the time because my business looks a lot different than I thought it was going to.
Did you use like a technique or, pencil and a legal pad? Since we're sponsored by number two Ticonderoga pencils and yellow legal pads per Kristen Zeman. I haven't seen the contract for their sponsorship, but we are. So
Trust me. Trust me.
did you use like
Yeah, well, I did. I
tools?
did learn in my IACP days to use pencil, so I am big
Oh,
time number
preach,
two
sister,
pencil.
preach.
That being said, it was more of a document on my computer,
Okay.
and it did evolve. So I kind of had an outline. I'm a notebook person. There's a whole like bunch of notebooks. That's only the beginning of all the notebooks that really looked at what do I need to make, what do I need to be charging, how am I going to do this. The process that I used for coaching, I had learned through my certification program. So it was more about the business side more so than what I was going to offer. That I had kind of cleaned up while I was still at IACP, knowing what I was going to offer and how I was going to provide value to people. So it was really like, how am I going to offer this? Where are the people? How am I going to find them? And again, none of that happened the way I thought it would.
Yeah, that's really what I kind of want to pull on that thread here is that, especially, and then we'll start with, kind of the entrepreneurial mindset of leaving, to go start something anew. And then I want to go backwards a little bit, to your concept that you call intrapreneur. But, when you said that it looks much different than you planned, that is so interesting to me because since retiring and starting my own business, it looks remarkably different. My plan was to do one-on-one coaching. And as Sylvia can attest to, and some of the other people within my tribe, I am not great at that. And it's not because I'm not good at doing it. It's because I'm not good at setting value of like saying, okay, well, thank you. That will be, this amount of money for, the 4 hours that we've spent.
That's
I'm just
noble.
I'm no, it's actually it's a deficiency in me because I will give so much of time, and I've just realized I'm just not good at that at the one-on-one. And it's kind of interesting the way that my business has taken me into keynotes and consulting for organizations. But I started with thinking, oh, I'm a one-on-one coach, but you have to kind of adapt, and then I recognize that maybe that's not where my talent lies, and or just something that I should be doing just as kind of a hobby or with a certain amount of people. But talk about that of when you say it looks very different. Do you fight that, or do you just kind of lean into how it unfolds for you?
So I think I fought it for a while, and was like, no, 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 this is how it's going to work. I just need to keep trying. And then the opportunity started to kind of come in a different direction. And I'm like, all right, well, we'll move this way. And I think what changed for me was realizing that it really is just like a middle school science fair project, right? Like I'm making a hypothesis. I'm going to test the hypothesis
Ooh,
and then I'm going to make some changes. And,
I like that.
not holding on to it as much of like, this was the plan as much as, well, this is my hypothesis. Like, this is what I think. But
Do
the
you hear
plan
that?
can always change.
Do you hear that? So this sounds a lot
I
like
heard,
thinking like a scientist. It sounds a
I heard
lot
it.
like Adam Grant. It sounds a lot like not being solidified into one particular thought or idea, but being able to go, whoa, this isn't working. Let's pivot. Wow. This is
Let's be
crazy.
intellectually curious. Let's see, this is what I believe, but I'll take all this data from a variety of sources and see what unfolds. Good for you, Becky, because so many people would just keep driving forward. My mom used to say, Sylvia, follow your compass and not your clock. I'm like, Mom, I'm 8. I have no idea what the fuck that means. But in essence, it's saying, look, here's your values. Here's the essence of you. Here's your character, your principles. Here's your values. Keep driving forward toward those, and things will occur in the time in which it's supposed to occur.
Yeah. I still struggle with that, but I'm on board. I think there's still that part of me that wants to be like, no, it's the plan. No, it's the timing. No, it's the goal. But I think what keeps me sane is, nope, it's just the hypothesis.
It's a
I have
hypothesis.
to
But
keep
you know
going
what?
back to
That's
it.
where so many leaders get stuck. And I don't know if it's attached to ego, or to this idea that, I implemented this, therefore we have to, make this work, pound this square peg into this round hole and keep, hitting it until it fits. Instead of going, I love that metaphor. This was just a middle school science fair hypothesis is, we're going to take this is how we think it's going to unfold, but it may not. And so then you kind of trust and follow the process as it goes, and you ask more questions along the way. So great, really great leadership nugget there for all of our bunnies who are listening.
And it underscores this thing that the Stoics, maybe Marcus Aurelius said, humility is not passivity. You have a humility coupled with this curiosity and this idea that you're like, okay, I'm not being passive. I'm still actively working toward it, but I'm just going to let it kind of play out. This is going to be your next coaching endeavor, Becky. I can feel it.
Totally. Okay, so Becky, let's pretend that I am a person who is in an organization. I don't run the organization. It's not my own business, because this is the majority of our listeners, people who are a part of something. And perhaps they are frustrated because there is a leader who is, unwavering and, perhaps, clinging to that one traditional idea or system or process that's not working. And that's what I hear in my travels when I go around speaking and I talk to people afterwards. They say things like, gosh, I wish our leadership were here, to listen to this message because they're the ones who need it, and so these individuals feel stuck and they feel helpless. So, what do you tell people, with this concept of intrapreneurship, that, having control over their plight when they're not the ones running the show?
Yeah, I think, there's a couple things. One, and Simon Sinek said it really well, and I just loved it, was, kind of create your own pocket of magic. Like, in your organization, you have some influence. It may be that you oversee a team. It may be, that your colleagues that you have lunch with, it may just be you, but like you can create a pocket of magic around yourself and some things will happen. One, you're either going to grow that pocket of magic, like you're going to be so good that they're like, something's happening over there. Like maybe we do need to listen. Or, those people you mentioned, growing people so then they leave and, go to other parts of the organization. Well, guess what? They take the little bit of magic with them because now they've learned from you. And so your magic can grow that way. The other thing is, and this kind of goes to the hypothesis piece, is, what data do I need? Like maybe this isn't the place. I mean, I want to be real. Like, yes, can you change organizations? I think change happens at all levels. I think everyone can do it. And sometimes that's not the place for you. But you don't want to just leave just because you're fed up. You want to go. Like, what data do I need? Let me try this. Let me create this pocket of magic. Let me, try a new way or present information. Let me communicate or develop a process and show them how this could work. And then if they say no, and then if, kind of make them make a decision, right? Like, I think we make a lot of generalizations like, oh, they don't want to hear this. They don't want to, but have you presented it yet? Like, make them say no, right? And so kind of collecting that data.
Yeah. And it's one of those things, Kristen and I talk about Don Miguel Ruiz's book, The Four Agreements, all the time. It's like, don't make assumptions. We assume,
Yes.
we kind of play this out. You just described someone who had an idea that then said, that took it down the road in an assumption like it's never going to work. They will poke holes in it. Well, maybe, but there's a real compelling energy that you just offered around don't make assumptions.
That also is something that people really have to fight within themselves to become their own disruptors, because I see so many people fall into learned helplessness, which is, why should I even bother? Why should I vote? Because my vote doesn't matter. The other guy's going to win anyway. Why should I offer my ideas? Because they're not going to implement them anyway. So this victimization that happens is learned helplessness. And whenever we think the problem is over there, up there, down there, then that's part of the problem, right? And so I like what you're saying. You're saying that people aren't as helpless as sometimes even they may feel in the moment, that there's that particular circle of influence. You can't control everything, but you have this pocket of magic, quote, this, circle of influence where you can affect change. And maybe part of that is becoming a disruptor, pitching a new idea and having the courage to take it to leadership. As you said, the worst they can say is no, but force them to say no, right? But at least you've tried something. So I like that. But I just think the majority of people just really throw up their hands, and that's where apathy sets in. And that's, of course, the disease that we have to fight.
Well, in Chief Moyer, you mentioned the four agreements. I think intrapreneurship is, and I hadn't really thought of it this way, though it is one of it's up here somewhere. You know, always doing your best. Like you talk about learned apathy. Like sometimes I think we start to slack on that, and like do your best. Like make them so they can't. I think you said this, Chief Zeman, in one of your blogs recently. Like be so good they can't ignore you. Like. I mean, I think there's something to be said for that. And,
Yes.
the other piece is not taking it personally. I think sometimes we don't want to tee something up because we are afraid they're going to say no. And maybe they've said no in the past. Maybe we have a lot of evidence for that. And we're like going to be devastated if they do, instead of being like, no, like, I'm good. We're going to put this up there and we're going to see what happens. And I'm okay. Like, I'm going to be fine, regardless of what they say.
Yeah, there's a real interesting thing there that I'm thinking about. Colin Powell, General Colin Powell, was known to have said, separate self from role, right? And if the role goes, the self should not be diminished. Yourself and your role are different. And what you just struck in me was, gosh, present it as your role. It is your role, your responsibility as a leader to perhaps pitch it, to drive it forward. And there's a real danger in not moving it forward because you're going to take it personally. And if it's your role advancing it, then how could you take it personally? I don't know. I'm churning on this thing.
Same. And wasn't it also Colin Powell that said something along the lines of, when your people stop coming to you with
Yep.
their problems, with their ideas, then you have failed as a leader? So it's all part of the same thing.
Right.
It's like when people, the dog that does not bark, I've said this many times, when people don't feel that they can offer their opinions and, their ideas, then you are failing as a leader. Period.
Right. And that comes from the great book by Orrin Harari, The Leadership Secrets of Colin Powell. And he also said, I think number 12 was my favorite. And I kind of, like a total fangirl, told him when I met him, General Colin Powell, perpetual optimism is a force multiplier. And if we remain optimistic, people want to be part of what we're doing. And that has to be part of your coaching stuff, Becky, because you're giving people this clear path, right? I don't know. It's just, this is a thinking day for me, including that little nugget that is Kristen Zeman, who we talk about making our beds. We'll talk about the routine, but it's not the routine as she wrote in her blog that was released today. And so there's this thing that we have to consistently butt up against, and that is to do our best every day and to drive forward and to, Kristen, maybe remake a bed that somebody else makes because it's not to your standard and you're not a monster. You're just really.
Listen, I'm looking for people to walk around the bed and check the work. That's that's the kind of people I need. I just like to check work. I need therapy.
No, you don't. It's,
So
it's
funny.
perfectly you.
Becky, what would happen if you're coaching an individual and you learn, I don't know, that they push snooze like 12 times before they wake up and get out of bed, or that they, don't make their bed? I mean, how would you handle a case file like that?
Monster. Like, how would that, like,
We send them to therapy. That's beyond coaching. No, I'm just kidding.
God. So you take yes. I mean, you're right. That is out of your realm, out of your level of expertise. Oh my goodness. Do you have a morning routine, Becky? Can you share with us, what do you do? Like, even if it, and you have to tell the truth, because I love that we had one of our guests on here that's like, well, I would love to tell you that I make my bed every day, but that would be a damn lie. I really support that. So, like, do you have this morning routine, or are you a slow goer? Tell me everything.
No, so I'm not like a 5 a.m.er or anything like that, but I do make my bed when I get up. My husband leaves very early, so he's already gone and out. I've tried to like get him to like pseudo make his side of the bed before he leaves, but he doesn't. So I do make the bed. And then my daughter is also an early bird, so she's usually ready and raring to go. So I'll help her get ready, and then the bus comes early. We live in a pretty rural area, so the bus is here pretty early. And so we'll go do that. And then depending on the day, I'll either go for a walk or jump into coaching or some consulting work. Kind of depends. My best work is the morning. So again, I'm not a super early bird, but like that 7:30 to like noon is like my zone of genius time.
Your pocket of magic.
Yes, that's my pocket of
Yeah,
magic.
see, that's key for our listeners too, is to figure out what, time of day they're most productive. But a lot of people don't have control over their days, like, because they have set hours, and so they have to sort of, I guess, work within that time module, right? But, for people who do have a little more freedom to set their schedules, that's the most important thing, I think, is to realize, where your pocket of magic is, where you do your best focused work, and then also to do the really hard things that you don't want to do first, no matter who you are. And, that is like the thing is like, I have to answer these emails today. You might as well just get it done right away. But do the hard thing as soon as you possibly can. That's my advice. And I don't know anything about anything.
Well, and I think it's also worth questioning how much control you really do have. Because again, I think people say, well, I got to be there at 9 and I work till 5 and blah, blah. And I'm like, and yes. And can you schedule your meetings for the morning? Like I think, again, we get on these trains and don't even think sometimes, even if we're within an organization, that there might be more control than you think you have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting. What do you think about changing work hours? Is, like how there's new legislation posed where, having a 3-day weekend for everyone. Do you think that, that whole principle of the work expands to fill the time? I'm interested in what both you and Sil think about that, of shortening the work week.
I see it on her face.
I know you have a contemptuous look.
Okay.
Okay,
she's
Becky,
not gonna share.
you're our guest, so you go first, young lady.
So I will say, I think it depends on the industry. For sure. I'm currently reading Slow Productivity by Cal Newport, where he's really talking about like knowledge work and how we've tried to use a lot of our industrial revolution concepts and then push that into a like knowledge work place. And it doesn't really work. Like, again, people work at different times, like work better at different times. We do expand. One of the things I love that he talks about, you talk about expanding to fill the space, is he says, every project or like task that you have has some degree of task overhead. So like maybe you have to meet with the boss or whatever. So as long as that task is going to take, you're always going to have that overhead. So if you can take the time to like get that task done in a week, it's way less overhead. But if that task now takes you, because you have all these other things, takes you 3 months, that overhead keeps multiplying with you. So I do think there is some sense of like it expands to fill the space. I talk to my
Mhm.
clients sometimes about like, are you putting it in a mansion or are you putting it in a tiny house? Like, people figure out how to live in those tiny houses. But I don't know that it's going to work for every industry. And yet again, I know we'll talk a little more about entrepreneurship, but I think sometimes we have to live in that little bit of discomfort of like deciding what works best for our organization or our industry. Some of them, we talk about not working remotely versus being in the office, but yet something does get lost sometimes when you're not in the office. But does that mean we need to be in the office all the time? Like, it's swinging so far either direction. So I'm really interested to see where it goes. I think we're creating a new culture that's providing opportunity for people who maybe either couldn't be in the workforce or had to choose. Like, maybe there's going to be more opportunity now for them to engage in new ways.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting as we study this era, backwards and connect the dots backwards and what, emerged from the COVID era, where, it's really heightened, the idea that we don't need to take up space, in big, brick and mortar buildings, and I was enlightened when I visited Uber. And I've told the story before, but when I was walking, or they were giving me a tour of Uber and we were there, it was a bunch of law enforcement officials that were there, invited as a big think tank to talk about trying to help them solve the problems of the sexual assaults that were happening on the platform, amongst the passengers. And as I'm walking through Uber, I see a bar cart. And so I asked the tour guide, I said, "Oh, is there like a birthday party?" And he looked at me like I had three eyes. And I said, "Oh, I just saw the bar cart." And he's like, "No, they're adults. If they want to have a drink, they can." And I'm like, "While they're working?" And he said, "Yeah." And he said, "It would also probably surprise you to know that they have unlimited time off." I said, "Hold on. Unlimited time off?" He said they can take off whenever they want. And he said, and we have to actually force people to take time off. And because human beings are project oriented. And when they care about something and they're working on something, they want to just keep working on it. And he said they may, in the middle of the day, go have to take their kid to the doctor or go pick up their kid, but then they come back and work. And I'm like, my mind is blown. And the more that I study that kind of atmosphere about people working at their peaks at different times and still getting the job done, there's something that we're missing here in both our education system. I know we're on a tangent here, but, and in our workforces of like, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, like robots, when really the human is a creative, project oriented, animal that wants to get stuff done and wants to work towards something, that is, of course, they're aligned to with a higher purpose. So, there's something to it. I'm just saying.
Yeah, and so I'm going to chime in here. It's an interesting space because kind of opinions are mixed, right? And so if we go along that thought that you two just laid out, that here's the project, you get it done in the way that it's got to be done, given the hours and the days that you're going to contribute, and it gets done on time and to the standard of the organization. It doesn't matter if it's Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. The difficulty, the kind of agita that I have is
Ajita?
number one, agita. It's like indigestion, heart pain, very like, oh, I
Spell
got
it.
agita.
Spell that.
Oh, isn't it like AGITA? Okay, it's a fucking agita. That's like,
I've
it's so
never
New
heard
York.
that word before in
Okay,
my entire life.
and it's not
Ajita.
angina. Somebody's going to mail in and say it's angina. That's different. This is agita. So,
Ajita.
okay, we'll dissect that in a minute. So I think there's a couple of things. One is people default to that one asshole who's going to take advantage, and the second thing is to limit this idea that you have. The other is that labor has this really interesting relationship with everybody being the same in a classification of employees. Those are our struggles, right? So it is, I don't think government's going to lead the way here. I think private industry
Mm-mm.
is going to lead the way. And it is a very, very interesting field. If you could say that, okay, going to 3-day weekends, that's 52 extra days off a year. That's life changing. That's That is life changing. And what do people do with it? There's all kinds of stuff that's going to influence these decisions by leaders across industry and across this law enforcement public sector space and enterprise. So I don't know. It's just, I think we default to that one guy is going to take advantage, and then labor gets really out, just wrapped around the axle around everybody in a classification should be treated the same. You have thoughts on that?
I think you're right that government's probably not going to lead the way. I think the other piece, and you touched on this, is, you get the job done, you get it done on time and satisfactorily. How many people or how many places are sitting there really looking like, okay, did you, check, check, check? Like, no, did you work your week? Did you fill out your timesheet? Cool. Moving on. We're all too busy to sit there and really dissect how well you're doing. So it really changes the dynamic of performance evaluation
Yeah,
as well.
that's what we're talking about here. And that's the concept that work expands to fill the time allotted for its completion, but we're not looking at quality. It's like that's Parkinson's law, right? I think that's what it is. But you're so right. We are so focused on, are you here for all of the hours that we're making you, stay here, but we're not looking at the quality. Well, what did what did you do when you were here? What did you accomplish? What were your outcomes? And I've been to, and I'm speaking of police departments, and we know that this would be unimaginable to have people work, all their different hours. We have 911 calls that we have to answer. So, and then there is, of course, a formula and a science where we staff based on those 911 calls and the influx. So all of that is not applicable to law enforcement, at least as far as the street is concerned, but could definitely apply to different divisions in the police department. But you're so right. And I've been to organizations. One of the last organizations I was at doing an assessment, they don't have annual evaluations. They don't have evals. It's part of their contract. And I'm like, well, how do you measure performance? And my mind was absolutely blown. Like, how do you show people, hey, here's where you need to be. And, and then there is a measurement that we have to use. This is out of my expertise, but it just kind of blows my mind when no one has that.
Yeah. Okay. So your Parkinson's law, or that the work expands to, what'd you say? The time
to fill the time allotted for its completion. So people will take longer than necessary to complete a task and procrastinate it. For like, it's like due dates. It's like when you set, a due date, when it's like you'll take up that entire amount of time, to get the thing done.
Think about this with meetings. The default is an hour meeting, and you could probably complete it in 27.5 minutes. So same kind of thing. There's a real leadership lesson there. And so having a 30 minutes, people know here are the confines and let's get it done. That is super compelling to think about, Kristen.
Yeah, for sure. I've heard of people that have meetings, and there's standing meetings where they just come in and like they don't sit down and they just like nail out, the topics and get it done fast. Like that's my kind of meeting, because meetings are just such a waste of time.
Ted would make us do like squats or push-ups or a wall sit and say, when you break that 90-degree angle in your wall sit, meeting's over.
Meeting's over. That's right. I like that. Becky, where can people find you if they want to employ your services, either one-on-one coaching, or team coaching, project management, all of the stuff?
All of the stuff is at stickleystrategies.com. So you can find info. Like you said, I've got one-on-one coaching. I do a lot of speaking, which is one of the things that was not in the business plan originally. And then I have a group program called the Intrapreneur Incubator. So that's a 6-month program. And all of that is online.
That's awesome. Stickleystrategies.com.
You got it. Yep. Good. And I'm on Facebook, Instagram at Stickley Strategies.
Okay, what if you were in Saskatchewan? Would it be like Stickley Strategies of Saskatchewan? That's Kristen. That's our favorite word.
My favorite word. Yes. It's my favorite word.
Hopefully you don't have a lisp and you're not looking to.
Saskatchewan.
So
Got it.
Saskatchewan. I'm going to get braces and say Szechuan.
Mhm.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us today. We kind of went like on 20 different tangents, but that's
That was
okay. That's what we do here. Like
it's perfect.
there's no outline. We just go with the flow. Like we just find these
Um,
little nuggets that fill our bunnies. So, having said that, I'm going to just leave you with this question to bring us home. But
Here it comes.
our metaphor, is the hollow bunny. That's why we named this podcast the Hollow Bunny, because there were so many people that we have come across in our professional career that had a nice shiny outfit, nice suit, but they were kind of hollow, hence the metaphor. So tell us, what fills your bunny? What brings you substance?
I think I'm trying to think of the right word. I'm going to have to create a made up word for it. But in the meantime, I'm going to say
Like Syl did?
consistency. Yeah, exactly. I'll get Syl to
Aja?
get me a word. But, I think there's so many different types of leaders out there. If you walk into someone's office and you know what you're going to get, I think that speaks for a lot, because that allows you to not be focused on whether you're going to get Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde today, but focus on what matters and focus on the problem. And I don't mean consistency in the fact that they're like super predictable and you always know the answer, but like, I know the person I'm going to go to and they're going to come down in the trenches and we're going to whiteboard and we're going to figure it out. I know the person that I'm going to go to and they're going to make me think, and then they're going to send me on my way kind of with a pukey feeling to go figure it out, and that they're going to have my back when I come back and say, hey, here's the value filter I used. And they're going to be like, all right, well, you really screwed up, but I see what you did there and I've got your back. Here's how we're going to fix it. So I think knowing, like having, again, that consistency of leader, it's less scary for people. And I think that makes a big difference.
I love that. That's really great. And you think about that in, as far as the hollow bunny. I mean, you don't want to, it's like you don't want to get like a little spot that's, like chewy and another part that's not. I mean, it just needs to stay consistent. The nougat,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
consistent.
Yeah, well, Becky, StickleyStrategies.com, thank you for what you provided, not only for our millions of listeners. Our sponsors are going to be ecstatic at your
So happy.
contribution. So happy. And thanks for what you do for people individually and then the collective. You're really elevating the thinking and the action. So thanks for what you do and taking
Well,
this
thank
time to be
you.
with us today.
Yeah,
Thanks for
thank you so
having me. It
much.
was so good to spend some time with you all again.
I know, absolutely. And to all of our listeners, thank you for being here. Ted Madden produces this podcast, and the song you are about to hear was written and performed exclusively for us by my handsome and talented son, Jake Zeman, and his accomplished friends, Fabian and Zoe. If you like the podcast, please do us a favor, subscribe, like, review, tell everyone you know about it, share it on your social media platforms. We would really appreciate it. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, or X, whatever you're calling it these days. And if you don't like the podcast, move along. What do you know about podcasts anyway? Thank you, bunnies. Keep filling your own bunnies and add substance to others. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye, everyone.
When you look inside, what do you find? Are you content to fall behind? When you lose your way and you've lost your why, have courage and get ready to fight the hollow bunny. When the way ahead is covered in smoke and you're tired and you're scared and you're losing hope, you'll open your heart and your eyes to see a challenge and a question. Why not me? To fight the hollow bunny. And we all feel hollow sometimes, but the monsters are only in your mind. It's a tough pill to swallow, but if you're brave and kind, you'll be alright. If you fight the hollow fight instead. To change the world, you've got to start small. It takes a leader to say, I don't know it all. And I know I'm gonna fall, but I'll pick it up and come back stronger. Failing forward and moving onward, doing the hard thing and the right thing, forever fighting the hollow bunny. And we all feel hollow sometimes, but the monsters are only in your mind. It's a tough pill to swallow, but if you're brave and kind, you'll be alright. If you fight the hollow bunny. If you're tough on the outside but empty within, something's gonna crack, you've gotta start again. You're tough on the outside but empty within, something's gonna crack, you've gotta start again. Monster on the outside